So, welcome Dhanesh to the first initiative of the program titled Let's Catch Up, which is more of interaction and sharing. So, let me quickly tell you about the program. It typically aims at unlocking the unique potential to engage seasoned professional, I would say. What happens with that is typically they will able to have a conversation where they will share as to what expertise or experience they have gone through and which will help people to have more insights from the experience of the seasoned professional like you who is there today. The second very important aspect they will learn is a real world lesson. You have gone through a real life experiences, you applied a lot of tactics, you applied a lot of approaches which will help them to find the solution for the common challenges. The third one is, typically all this will give them a actionable insights or strategy, which they can immediately apply on their career, their projects to get this success there. Okay, so with all this summary, let me start welcoming you. And I'm thrilled to welcome you here for an interaction. I'm sure, with your experience and as I know you, sure it promises enriching takeaways and it will bring a good amount of perspectives to the people when they are looking at certain aspects. Okay. Thank you for your time. And we are excited to learn from you today. So before we
It's a
go,
pleasure to be with you, Bilan. Pleasure to be
thank
with
you
you.
so much, Danesh. And before we go ahead, let me quickly do an introduction of yours. Though I have a very lengthy introduction for you, obviously, because of that vast career and the
Keep it short. Keep it short.
Okay, but let me quickly run because some of the important points I felt must be coming up. So, for all those who would watch this recording, Dhanesh is accomplished human resource and organization development professional with over 2 decades of experience in driving organization effectiveness, cultivating inclusive workplace culture. He is committed to leveraging strategic leadership development initiatives, which ensures the superior team performance and employee engagement. The current role is in Syngenta, London, UK since 2023. As a global head of learning and leadership development, his focus is in enriching leadership team effectiveness and building organization culture through advanced facilitation and executive coaching strategies. Prior to this, he was in US for 5 years and he was at Chicago, Illinois, Greensboro, and North Carolina. There he was actually a global head of people organization development as well. He was heading the North America. So he oversaw the global people and organization development initiatives there and strategically enhancing the workforce capabilities. 2 continents have happened. Let me add up further. He was also head of people and organization development at Asia Pac, 5 years duration at Singapore. He designed and executed a talent management frameworks, leadership development programs tailored to various regions and managed the HR initiatives across the Asia Pac region, ensuring alignment with the regional workforce dynamics. His expertise includes leadership and organization development, human effectiveness and system change, learning and development strategies, talent management, succession planning, employee engagement, and experience, obviously, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. His core competence, to name a few: strategic leadership development, organization change management, talent management strategies, employee learning and development solutions. So, why Dhanesh is here? He possesses a unique global experience. He has got intercultural competence when it comes to leadership too, with a professional experience across India, Middle East, Singapore, and the United States and UK. His ability to lead a diverse teams globally is complemented by his engagement with the executive teams across Asia, Japan, Australia, Europe, and United States, enabling organizations to harness diverse perspective for enhanced outcomes. So this is Dhanesh for you. and I'm sure you all are going to enjoy interaction with him. Dhanesh, anything you would like to add?
No, I just want to say that was a very nice introduction from you. I'm really grateful for that. Um, I really have been fortunate to live and work across four countries over the last many years. But what I really appreciate about is, our camaraderie and our association that goes a long way as well. So I want to acknowledge that. So thank you again
Thank
for
you. Thank
inviting
you
me
so
today.
much. And just on the this thing, important aspect that I consider Dhanesh as a mentor. So let me go to the next part of it. Okay, I didn't so far said my name, but my name is Milind Mutalik, and I'm currently a freelance HR professional, but worked in the industry in HR function and various organizations for 3+ decades. So let me begin with the session, and let me first put up a small story, because when you start with the story, people get interested. So this story is named as the morning a morning encounter, and here we're trying to describe quickly a prospective parent and a child. And all of us, typically in the morning in the housing complex, in apartments, see where the morning activity, when it starts, you would find at the entrance of the complex, the bus is about to arrive, and the mother with a young child anxiously making kid to walk fast to the entrance of the gate where the bus is about to arrive. She is glancing at her watch, and her eyes are fixed on the school bus which is coming slowly at the gate. She says, "Come on, honey, we need to catch the bus." She is really urging. Her voice is having urgency in it, because she is looking at some of the aspects which are beyond child's understanding. But the child is lost in the wonders of the world, looking at the clouds, looking at the butterflies which are around. Obviously, a tickling clock is really, weighing on the mother's conscience. And the child's world is always filled with a playground, and the attention for a child is only what child is able to see is the wonderful wheels of the bus and the colorful entrance of the bus. Whereas the mother is able to see the consequences of not reaching on time, missing on arrival at the school, missing on the instruction time. The anxiety in the mother is very high. This is where the story ends. But if you look at it, it has a dual perspective. And the metaphor which I'm trying to draw out of this is what we see at the workplace is the leadership and the team members or followers, where the leader is able to see the broader perspective like a mother, and able to carry a broader vision, understand the stakes necessary, what needs to be done as per the particular timelines, what are the goals which are supposed to be met, and if the task is not completed, what the consequences are. Vis-a-vis the team members, okay, are engaged in the present moment, focused on the immediate joys, challenges without fully grasping the larger picture. Their inexperience often leads to a narrow focus. Okay. In the delicate balance of leadership and a followership, the maturity perspective becomes critical. Urgency, vision, imagination, maturity, experience, perspective, all this comes in as a very important words when we talk about the leadership. So welcome to everyone for our today's discussion. We will seek some insights on the critical themes of learning, leadership, employee engagement, and organization development, and the change management from none other than Dhanesh Gupte. So, Dhanesh, I will start with my question. Before that, do you want to just give some inputs, any comments you would like to give?
Just again, how delighted I am here to have this conversation with you and others who listen, hopefully benefit from our conversation. Uh, it's really a pleasure to be able to be on your podcast. So thank you again.
Thank you, Dhanesh. And let me start with the question now. The first question to you is, in your experience, how would you describe the variations in the leadership styles and processes between different continents. I have sub question to it. So the first one is, how do you describe the variations in the leadership styles and processes between different continents? And what specific aspects have you observed that reflect the cultural and the organizational nuances in the leadership practices across the region? So I'm asking of different leadership styles and nuances which are reflecting cultural and organization aspect while you're talking about the leadership practices across the region. Over to you, Dinesh.
Thanks, Philip. And it's a great question to start off with. What I'm trying to do in this Q&A session is really also share some of my experiences here. So, looking at this question, we try to look at what are the differences across the different continents. That's what you asked, and I will get to that. But I think it's really important to also understand that when we are talking about leaders and leadership, what are the things that are really common that makes great leaders? And it's really important to understand that, because it's easy sometimes to look at differences, which we should, but we should also look at what really binds us, what is common. And a great leader, irrespective of anywhere in the world, and I can share this from my experience having worked in different countries, is they are people who are extremely self-aware. They're aware about what they're good at, they're aware about their shortcomings, and they're continuously working on that. They're continuously working on themselves. They are also very authentic. They care about their employees, they care about their teams. They have a very high orientation towards outcomes and results. They have a strategic focus, and they know how to get everyone along, right? So these are things which are really very, very common. Now, if you look at differences, and you talked about cultural, while great leadership is similar everywhere, leadership styles are often different. And the way people look at these different leadership styles is really important, because some of it comes up, in fact, a large portion comes through our cultural upbringing. You know, if you were to look at India, for example, a lot of our family systems, whether matriarchal or patriarchal, a lot of it is dependent on respect of elders, respect about family values, and that often comes into the workplace. Whereas what I've seen more in the Western world is it's a lot more flatter. It's not that hierarchical. It is much more egalitarian, and therefore it really looks at it very differently. And Milind, I'm just going to use your example about that lovely example that you gave, the story that you said at the beginning about this, you know, a young child walking towards the school bus, and the mother being there. Now, this is a very typical way of how we look at life and families in our part of the world. What I've seen here, and let me give you an example of Switzerland, and this is an actual example, where at the age of 4 or 5, you would actually want that child to take public transport and go to school. And part of it is also about how they are developing themselves individually. It's like you go find for yourself what works for you, and it's about letting go a bit. And well, you will fail, but then if you fail, you will learn. And that is very much ingrained in the Western psyche. About even if you look at um, a lot of children after high school go off to college, and that's a start of a new life for them. Whereas in India, a lot of people continue to work and continue to stay in large families. There's nothing that's good or bad. It's just a way of how that really looks at your leadership preferences. Uh, One of the things is that when you are looking at it from an hierarchical perspective, uh, sometimes our leadership tends to be very directive about, do this. I have the experience, I have the answers, I'll tell you what to do. you know you can go do whatever, but at the end of the day, I know what will work, right? And what I've seen a lot in the Western cultures is it's often not that. It's often, well, I may have experience, but maybe you have a better idea. Would you like to try it? And it's much more easier to have a conversation with people who may be much more senior than you, and still be able to get your point across. So these are certain things that I've seen in different styles in terms of leadership and leadership variations. Of course, we can have a whole podcast just on that topic, but I'm sure there are other areas you want to explore.
Great. I think, Wonderful. I picked up some points, but which I'll speak at the end. Yeah. Okay. So, second question comes to you is about what trends and processes in the learning and development, particularly in the leadership, coaching, and mentoring, you have observed across different global regions. So, let me repeat what trends and processes in learning and development, particularly in leadership coaching and mentoring, you observed across different global regions. Why I'm asking you this is in India, we have been hearing about coaching quite often now. Maybe last, I would say 1 decade or maybe 7, 8 years ago, this has come in as a buzzword, and leadership coaching has become very critical part of the whole process. And that being a reason, what do you see as the trends and typically across the global regions, how it's being looked at?
Right. And what you're saying is right. It's perhaps in the last maybe 7, 8 years that you hear much about coaching in India. But coaching has been an integral part here in the US, here in the UK, in Australia, in parts of the Western world for many, many years. And you have what you would call as a coaching industry. You've got a lot of executive coaches who are supporting leaders at different levels within the organization. I think one of the things is also about our perspectives about coaching. And coaching, in this part of the world, what I see is often looked at, it's an opportunity. So if I have a coach, I can use that time that I have with the coach to better myself on something that I'm working on. Whereas what I have seen in India is often it is looked at as remedial. I know that that is changing, but this is, I mean, I remember an incident where, we had this was in Singapore a few years back, and we had a leader from India who was told by his manager saying that we think that you would really benefit by having a coach. And part of the reason was this person was tagged as a high potential, and therefore he needed more exposure on how to work with other large parts of the organization and his increased uh, responsibility that he was going to have. But this person came and sort of spoke with me saying, why am I being given a coach? Is something wrong with me? And I actually had to convince him that there's nothing wrong with you. You're actually great. You are actually considered top talent. So take this as an opportunity. So a bit of it is also about the mindset that people have and how that is changing. You briefly talked about mentoring as well. And mentoring, though, is a bit different because in mentoring, what I've seen is um, in the West, it's much more structured, and in India or even parts of Asia, it's not that structured. So what I mean by that is it doesn't mean that it's again good or bad. Mentoring happens. I think naturally as Indians, we talked about respect earlier. We like to give advice, right? People who are more senior like to give advice, even if it is sometimes unsolicited by the younger generation. But that's what we do, and in mentoring that works really well. Whereas more what I've seen in the Western world, it's about, well, I have a relationship with you as a mentor. Let's have a mentorship contract of what are we going to talk about. What are the how long are we going to, is it going to be 9 months? Is it going to be a year? How often do we meet? Is it once every month, once every 45 days? What do you want to achieve through this? It's a lot more structure that goes into this, and I haven't seen as much go into that. Again, it's not good or bad because both work, but these are the differences that I see in mentoring. But I want to make a very quick point and move on. Is I have seen sponsoring as something which is, and I saw that a lot in the US, and I don't see as much in India. And sponsoring is not really either coaching or mentoring. It's about actively being involved in somebody's development. While a coach will ask you questions, a mentor may give you some life experiences. When you are really talking about sponsoring, I can tell you an incident. So there was this senior leader who was sponsoring another person from another department, and he had a very important customer meeting to go to. And he actually took this person who was like 3 levels down with him to the customer meeting, saying, here's a high potential. I'm meeting an important customer. he will probably learn a lot when he sees those interactions. Why don't you come along with me? So this is actively getting involved in somebody's development, which is very different from either coaching or mentoring. So I thought that's something that I'll also call out as something for us to do.
Absolutely wonderful. Okay. So the third one comes to you. Here I'm moving from leadership to bit of learning and development and employee engagement. How does the employee engagement with learning and development initiatives differs across the region? And what strategies have you found effective in enhancing this engagement while supporting the organization development agenda? So the point is employee engagement, learning development across the regions. What are the strategies used to be more effective? And obviously, you need to look at the cause of organization development as a major outcome from there. So, how do you look at that part?
Yeah, I think it's a good one because, and I'm talking about this in large organizations, right? How, and even without learning and development, it's important to know how are decisions taken in large organizations. And often a small group of people in a meeting room somewhere in the country, in some headquarters, is deciding what decisions you're making for the rest of the world for that employee population of your company. And I think what is really important as a leader, whether you are a learning leader, whether you're an HR leader, is how can you bring in the voices of those who are not present in the room and make them heard? I think that's a very important role that you play as a leader. Can you bring in those voices? And those could be across different regions, those could be across different countries, could be across different parts of the organizations. So one of the things that I would obviously say is when you're looking at any learning and development activities, one of the key things that you would look at, there are two things. So, but the first thing is you would say, are they learner centric? Does it really help the learner to learn? Right? And it could be different. So I could be sitting in my ivory tower in a meeting room saying that, okay, I've got this learning experience system. Everybody can access a course now. They just have to download it and they can start doing it at their own pace. It gives a lot of flexibility. That's fine. But, when we were trying to roll out something like this in our organization, and I'm sure it's true in a lot of other large organizations, is an organization that is very complex. It has got very different kinds of employee bases. So to give you an example, you have people at manufacturing sites, you've got people at research sites, you've got people who are in sales, you've got some people in the office, and again those who are in the office could be remote workers, could be desk workers. So which means that there are different, what you would call as personas, and it's really important. So for example, one thing we realized when we were doing one of the projects is when we looked at the manufacturing side, this person said, look, the only time I can give this people is on Monday morning when we have our manufacturing meeting, when everyone comes in. And if I tell all the team leaders, okay, here's the training you need to do, then they will do it. Otherwise, there is no way that people are going to log into the system and do a training, because that's what the power that that plant manager had. And you talk about sales, somebody who's got to drive uh, a lot during the day and drive to customers who are remote and doesn't have connectivity, says all that I can do is Friday when I fill my sales report for the week, that's the time that I can actually do my training, because that's the only time I get, because otherwise I'm on the road. So understanding these flexibilities is really important, being learner centric, understanding those personas. And the other thing, I said there were two things, so this was the first, and the second is about whatever you're trying to do, is that really connected with what the organization is trying to achieve? And a lot of learning efforts fail there because we do great programs, courses, interventions, but not all directly relate with what the organization is trying to achieve. So for example, I'll just give an example and then maybe we can move on. Is if you're talking about innovation, right? If the organization wants to be an innovative organization, and if that's what you want to do, then what is the capability you need to build? You need to build the capability to experiment, to learn from those experiments, fail fast, be much more quicker, and move on. right? And that's the kind of capability you need to meet. You need so therefore you need to build that capability of being much more agile, right? So you how do you therefore build that capability of being agile? Part of it is learning courses, but what's the culture that would experimentation that would lead to experimentation? What's the culture that says it's okay to fail? What's the culture that says yes, let's put in some more investment here even if we don't see the immediate benefit of that? So a lot of it is cultural, a lot of it can also be in the learning domain, but key is whatever you do, see that it hits either not either it hits two things. One is what the organization wants to achieve, and second is that it's learner centric.
Great perspective. I will now ask you a last question. I may combine, my two themes together and ask you a last question. The whole world is changing with, business is changing, competition is different. There are emerging technology, there's a digital transformation, so on and so forth. Now, how do you think in this whole of a changes and dynamism of the world, HR professional will able to help in this transformation and change?
Yeah, I think there clearly is a lot going on around in the world, and I think it's really important for us to understand. I think I'll combine a bit about what's changing and also a bit around my views on technology, if that's okay. Is what is really interesting is uh, Gartner has this very well known piece called as the hype cycle for technology, right? So what they talk about, and there's a lot of clearly AI being talked about right now, and there's so many technologies that you see, and the typical hype cycle is you've got very high expectations at the beginning, but you don't have any business benefits. Over a period of time, those expectations go down, business benefits still don't come. Then there is a phase where you sort of understand that technology, and then you start going up again in terms of the benefits of it, and then your productivity increases. So there's a period of that. And you've got to understand where are you in the technology cycle to be able to make those changes. So as an HR professional, one of the things is to understand, not get too carried away by all the noise that's there, right? The other things are really things that you would really look at as a person. What do you need to do, and what do you need to get better at, right? So the first thing that I would see is don't get carried away by the hype cycle, whether it's social media, whether it's a lot that you keep on listening to. So really understand what is really important. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is make sure that you keep on reading a lot. You meet people from diverse backgrounds, and I'm not just talking about it from a DEI perspective, but the more people you meet and the different people you meet, you build your perspectives. And today it's all about having different perspectives. And I'd probably end by saying this, from as an organization development professional as well, is I want to bring in a bit of systems theory, right? Where you've got closed systems and open systems. And in closed system, it's like, well, this is my company. You've got a CEO, you've got a leadership team, my managers, I know the processes, I know everything. And I think that by doing some interventions within that system, I'll be able to get some outcomes. But we are moving much more towards an open system. You are interacting much more with the environment, you with your customers are shaping your products much more. They've got a much more voice in the kind of uh, not just products, but the kind of culture that you create within the organization, right? So you can see DEI as an example. Something happens outside, organizations start looking at it inside. At least in the US, that's happening. But the point is to understand that there's a lot happening in the external environment. So being aware about the organization as an open system, keeping track of what's really happening outside, and then continuing to learn in yourself and believe in yourself is the only thing. And this is not as advice. This is something that I try to practice. I hear other people practicing that, and we've all benefited from it. So that's where I'd like to sort of close off your question.
Great insights, Dhanesh. And I honestly say, this is a unique perspectives which you have given. I know this is a very brief kind of interaction, But I thought, let's keep the hunger on. So I'm sure, more topics, more speakers, and we will continue with this Let's Catch Up session for the interactions and sharing with more experienced people. And also, we will definitely want you to come again to, enlighten us on some more topics. So looking forward to more interactions, and big thank you to you for your time and this wonderful inputs, Dhanesh. Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Vidit. Thanks for a lovely summary. And again, thank you again for inviting me. It's been a pleasure. And looking forward to hearing the other speakers on your episodes.
Thank you. Thank you.